Next on my list is Councillor Pearson.
Deputy Mayor, and I certainly thank all the previous speakers. A lot of questions that I had have been answered, but I might touch on them again. And Paul, thank you so much for your time up there today. So I just want to verify going along, and I know there's a number of things that you say you're going to be coming back with. So there's a lot of unanswered issues still on the table. So surplus buses, what's going to happen, fares, the operation, the local bus service. I also want to touch on the rates, because currently we have great rates in City Hamilton. We have great incentives to assist the seniors, seniors pass, the golden age passes, the student passes. So we have no idea that's all going to be reported on going forward. Is that correct?
The Deputy Mayor, yes, we don't have answers for that as it relates to the operation of the LRT, but certainly are taking note of the concerns and the desires of Council and the community, because we've had this come from institutions and community members as well.
I'm concerned because it sounds like today I'm concerned that it's going to be a two-tier rate system, and I'd hate to see that happen because it would create confusion.
Through the Deputy Mayor, I understand the concern, but just there is no decision made on what that looks like today. So we'll be taking forward the positive message of how this works and integrates within this community and report back to you on how that goes.
Thank you. And because I'm going to ask a question because it's been raised a few times, and I think we've mentioned in the past. Has the opportunity been addressed of the possibility of tunneling between John Street and Wellington Street? Subway section.
Through the Deputy Mayor, I'm going to go to Trevor. Did we look at tunneling?
To the Chair, to the Councillor. We didn't particularly look in great detail at tunneling. That comment has always come up, and there's a bit of a feedback to that. Typically, when you go underground, there's a lot more complications to that. So it drives up the cost, probably about 3 times the cost of a typical at-grade LRT system. So I think that's the biggest significant. One of the other benefits of LRT at grade is really because it is at grade. And I often tell people is that you have up to 200 passengers on each LRV going in both directions every 4 to 6 minutes, and they're looking out the windows. They're not staring straight ahead at their steering wheel. They're actually looking out the windows, and they can actually see the various businesses and shops that they have just passed by. And therefore, you get this ribbon kind of uplift for the entire corridor versus just at station stops where you see from a subway or underground. So that's just one of the arguments. I'm not saying it's the end all be all, but it's just one that comes out.
Well, and I appreciate that because I think it's important for the viewing public also to understand, because those are questions that have come to my attention that residents have been raising, and I certainly be questioning why aren't we doing it in that particular stretch, because then that carries on or keeps the vibrancy of the downtown BIA area. So I appreciate that other viewpoint. I'm going to go now, Paul, if I could, I'm going to go back to the pictures, if you don't mind going back to some of the pictures, because they're worth $1 billion. Looking at the downtown picture, the one that you have with in the BIA area, right there. So just clarify to me, in this stretch of King Street, we're now going to say that this particular stretch is going to be eastbound only for vehicular traffic. And how are we going to address that?
Through the Deputy Mayor, correct. So under the proposed alignment here at Wellington, westbound traffic would not be able to continue on King Street. So the choices would be in the current network at Victoria, you could go north. At Wellington, you could go south, and you would move around this area if you were looking at a movement east towards the west. So from sort of the John Street area down to Wellington, yes, this was the eastbound traffic. So you see the traffic lane here. And really that was about access. So on the north side, because there is an alleyway system and there is a whole bunch more rear access available, and there aren't entrances to things like underground garages on the north side, it was the south side that caused us some concerns operationally. So we have an apartment complex with the only access to their underground garage off King. We have other commercial buildings where there is access points only off King. And so a solution to that is to look at one lane of traffic that would move eastbound there. It then flips, and the westbound traffic, so if I go back one, the westbound traffic picks up at Catherine, and you would actually be able to go westbound through the rest of the core and continue along King Street after James.
Go back to the first picture again. So there are actually two tracks. So that's eastbound and westbound. There will be two units that run up and down there, correct?
Correct.
Just wanted to be sure of that. So if you can just clarify, going on now to the Main West, and I know there's no picture for that. So when it comes out with the bridging over the 403, you said there's going to be no issue of, except for construction crossing over the ramps at the 403 exits, correct?
So through the Deputy Mayor, there's no contemplation of closing down those interchanges. The actual impact of construction, I have no doubt there will be some, but in terms of a full closure, nothing that I've heard to date to indicate that. I'll confirm that with Trevor just to make sure that those haven't been our conversations technically.
To the chair, to the councillor. We haven't heard any complications in regards to construction, but we haven't got into the detailed design either of how that construction is done. However, the ultimate alignment does not affect either ramps. So, and knowing engineering and knowing construction practices, there's usually workarounds to keep ramps open. So again, we haven't heard any closure of any ramps through construction.
Okay, thank you. Then can you also give us an idea of how it's anticipated when it bridges, it's going to come out, actually it's going to be going in the opposite direction now when you're heading westbound on Main Street, because in that particular stretch it is only eastbound to at least Paradise, the other side of Paradise. Is that correct?
Correct. So from a two-way perspective, for a short section until we get back online, there would be a very short period where but the traffic would actually be buffered by the train that's moving in the eastbound direction. And then there is this westbound train for a very short section. I'm not sure, Trevor, if you can actually talk about the actual length we're describing here, but you know the point where we're at the drawn on the north side and then getting back to center.
But yeah.
To the chair, to the councillor. Yeah, basically you're running from the 403 where it crosses right at Main Street, so that's just east of Macklin, and basically you're going one block between Macklin and Paradise.
But it's going to cross at Paradise, and it's going to be on grade at Paradise, because traffic, unless we're planning on closing that ramp at Paradise that comes out, or is that anticipated to stay in place?
Through the chair to the councillor. So we are looking at different options in regards to the detailed design of the closure, and that could be one of those closures. But you're correct. That's where Main Street basically goes from a two-way directional to a one-way directional, and we'd be following that kind of flow with the LRT tracks staying on the north part of the one-way section, and then transitioning right at Paradise to a center running. And how that works, again, we're working through the details, and we'll be coming to the PICs in September with those details ironed out. However, there's always opportunity for some changes as we go forward, as Mr. Johnson made.
Thank you. And I grew up in this neighborhood, so it just made me realize as well, we also have the emergency unit services at the corner of, I think it's Macklin and Main, correct? So now you're going to have that very north lane blocked. So as far as emergency visits to the center and access, that's all going to be reported back in the fall?
So through the Deputy Mayor, just Macklin is staying open as a way that traffic can move in, and one of the factors around that was the urgent care center that is there, as well as the family practice unit and all the rest. So we've been strategic in areas where we allow all movements to cross the tracks and for cars to come in and out, that they match up with key destinations that people are going to, whether it's for personal or, in this case, medical reasons, and making sure that we don't block that off. So it was an absolute consideration, and we're not going to have to wait to come. You're not going to have to wait to hear that. We've kept that open.
Thank you. And I guess I'll just wind down then. I appreciate the pictures and the clarification and certainly more information to come forward. You mentioned a couple of times, Paul, the maintenance and storage facilities. So we do not know where that's going to be. Is that part of the capital costs of this project that will be covered by Metrolinx and the $1 billion?
So through the Deputy Mayor, absolutely all the costs associated with the property acquisition and the construction of that is covered in. It's actually a building that Metrolinx will own and operate through whoever ends up operating this. So it's all covered. In terms of the location, we're still negotiating on the location, so we're not in a position to say here's where it is now for obvious reasons, but that will come out in the fall as well. But in terms of costing, not an issue for us.
We will have to be sure that it's tracked as well for these units, for the buses or the LRT units to get to and from the maintenance yards, correct?
Through the Deputy Mayor, absolutely. The goal is, of course, to always have your maintenance and storage facility as close as you can to the track. But you know, that's a difficult chore when you look at our alignment. So we're trying to find the closest piece. But yes, there are running tracks in and out of this, unless you have the good fortune of actually having that site right on the line. But in all cases, you have to run the cars in and out of it. And so we also have to protect against issues around where it's located from a neighborhood perspective as well. The vehicles, of course, come in late in the day. They go out very early in the morning to load the line. So part of our consideration on siting of this is to ensure that you know, it's not in the middle, running through the middle of a residential neighborhood.
And is it anticipated, because this question has been asked, with it starting at the Queenston traffic circle, is it anticipated to have parking available for people to drive to there and get on the LRT?
So through the Deputy Mayor, it's a question that's coming up more and more, so I can't give you a definitive answer right now. Generally speaking, LRTs are not park and ride styles of transit, but we're hearing more and more about how will I drive potentially to an area that can link me into the LRT. So actually at the LRT stops themselves, I mean, some of them have parking nearby, which is available. There may also be other opportunities to link people into good transit, bus transit connections, so it might be slightly off the LRT, but they're feeding into the LRT very quickly and very well through our bus transit system. You know, for instance, in Mount Hope, hopping on the bus system and going down from the office there on Upper James, and you can easily be downtown and connecting in through our transit hub in downtown Hamilton onto the LRT line. So those are kinds of things where you could actually drive, park, get onto transit, and end up utilizing the LRT. When you think about it, for going down to the waterfront, you could be parking your car in Mount Hope and actually getting to our waterfront via our transit system. So some of those exist, but we've heard it enough that we're actually going to noodle around a little bit with what that looks like at the terminus points as well. Tougher at McMaster's End, I'll just grant you that right now. Perhaps a little bit easier on the eastern end.
And sorry, just going back to the Westdale situation. So you mentioned we have the LRT going through, but we're also still going to have sub-services, because you have the Delaware service that runs through the heart of Westdale now. So that's all going to be factored in.
So through the Deputy Mayor, there's certainly in the West End, there are other routes that are not related to the Beeline Express and others. So you'll see that whole network, but I can assure you that where there's routes, even if they're close to the LRT, if they're their own routes, they're going to continue. Whether they get tweaked a bit in terms of how they run vis-a-vis the LRT routing, but it's not an elimination of all the routes that are anywhere near the LRT line.
Because you mentioned earlier that we're not sure that you're going to be able to have secondary buses servicing in the same area as the LRT is going now, correct? Through
the Deputy Mayor, actually on the line is one of the areas that we have to think about, but certainly local service has to be very close to that line for a variety of reasons. The LRT can't answer all of our transit needs, even along that corridor.
Thank you. I have two more questions if I can. One to Mr. Thorne, Mr. Deputy Mayor, through you to Mr. Thorne. Jason. Jason has been commenting today about our project population projections and certainly intensification along the corridor. And we've all been dealing with this as Planning Committee over the last number of years. So currently our population projections for the City of Hamilton are where?
Through the chair, to the year 2041, 780,000.
That's not anticipated to change with the review and the intensification at this time, correct?
Through the chair, not the magnitude, but certainly where it goes. The growth plan has made some changes in that regard.
Excellent, thank you. And my last question, if I could, Mr. Deputy, through you to Nancy or someone with regards to transit. I just wanted to confirm the discussions that were mentioned, the comments and questions raised earlier about improvements to other areas, especially the West Mountain currently. This all came about and is coming about with regards to the reviews that have been going on. Is that not correct through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Nancy? These are reviews going on currently throughout the whole city, because I know I've met with staff on improvements in the Stony Creek area, especially the north side of the QEW. So it's not technically part of this, it's part of the ongoing review of transit through the whole city, correct? Through
Nancy?
you, Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.